This month, the Israeli government began a new program incentivizing South Sudanese refugees to return back to South Sudan or face deportation at the end of March. In a previous story, The Real News covered the government's new plan to deter refugees from coming to Israel by building a wall on the border with Egypt, building the Western world's largest prison for refugees, and automatically imprisoning them for 3 years. In recent months, the conflict on the border between South and North Sudan was reignited. The head of the UN's Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs visited the area, saying,
the substantial numbers of returnees from Sudan since independence, 360,000, the large number of refugees in the country, particularly from South Kordofan and Blue Nile, the displaced from Abyei, and of course those who have been affected by the conflict in Jonglei State. And in addition to that, we now have a situation following recent analyses where 4.7 million people are food insecure in the country.
The Israeli government has a long-standing relationship with the leadership of South Sudan, having been one of the only nations to sell weapons to the rebel groups who later became the government. Ron Cohen is the director of Physicians for Human Rights, an Israeli NGO who runs a small open clinic for refugees in Jaffa.
We know that in Europe, more than 80% of the Eritreans are recognized as refugees. In Israel, their request is not even being processed and checked.
Have you heard of other countries, how they treat refugees?
Yeah, I know. يعني أبسط شيء أنت بتلقى محل تقعد فيه. أبسط شيء أنا باخد مigration، أنا باخد فيزا، كرت UN، باخد إخاصة، تعيين. هسه الناس أكل ما باكلوا، ناس بنوموا في الشارع ما باكلوا، ناس عيانين، علاج ما في علاجات.
Levinsky Park is a garden in the south of Tel Aviv, in the heart of one of the poorest neighborhoods. Once refugees are released from the detention center where they're brought when they first arrive, they're dropped off here. Last month, a refugee froze to death while sleeping in this park.
One of us died outside alone in the cold, not because he didn't want to rent a room, but because he couldn't. He couldn't. While at the room, renting a room, that is not something that costs millions. It's just a few shekels, but even those few shekels, he did not have them.
I have in prison 15 days in Israel. Then they allowed me, they brought me here in the Garden City. They lived me here by bus.
والله طبعا في الشارع في مواجهات، في حاجات صعبة، في مضايقات مثلا.
عندك شغل؟
شغل؟ work؟ ما شغال هسه قاعد ساي ما شغال.
I myself I have here in the garden a month and few days here without working, without anything. But we are till now we are just staying and ask the government of Israel to leave us here, to stay here and to just to survive.
والواحد طبعا جا البلد دي أو جا إسرائيل هنا على أساس إنه بيلقى استقرار يعني وبرضه ممكن يعني بيحسن الأوضاع المادية بتاعته. والله هي طبعا بالنسبة للمعيشة الناس اللي قاعدة في النجيلة دي معتمدة على النظام الغذائي أو الإمداد اللي بتجي من المنظمات. مثلا الصباح يجيبوا الناس اللي بتجي تجيب وجبات، مثلا في جهات معينة بتجي تجيب وجبات الصباح أثناء الفطور زي الساعة 10 وبعد ذاك تاني ما في وجبة إلا الوجبة بتاعت العشاء. برضه في جهات تانية أو ناس تانيين بيجيبوا الوجبة بتاعت العشاء.
If you get food, we can eat it. If you don't find it, we can sleep like that.
Unlike in North America or in Europe, Israel doesn't check most refugees' individual claims. Instead, it gives group protection to asylum seekers from Eritrea and Sudan, who make up 80% of the refugee population. Having refused to recognize them as refugees, the Israeli government claims it doesn't owe them the basic rights enshrined in the 1951 Convention on the Rights of Refugees. Nick Schlagman is the humanitarian coordinator of the African Refugee Development Center.
On the one hand, the government gives nothing to support basic humanitarian needs of refugees, which means for the first week to the first month, new arrivals will be homeless here in Tel Aviv, either sleeping in the park or sleeping in abandoned buildings, which presents a risk, a physical risk to them as well as a medical health risk.
If it's not life-threatening situation, immediate life-threatening situation, then they will not be treated. If someone will come with a cancer, for example, he will not be treated because it's not immediate. Starting from a simple flu and goes to chronic diseases, diabetes, cancer, and we do have a list of at least 100 people that are HIV positive carriers and not getting any treatment at all.
Mehdin Ahmed Musa is a civil engineer and a refugee from Sudan. Unlike the refugees in the park, he's been in Israel for 4 years. Here he describes being released from the detention center 2 weeks after making it across the border.
فمتخيلين بعد ده ياخدونا العربية التانية لمكتب الأمم المتحدة أو مكان الإقامة. فقال لنا انزلوا. أول ما نزلنا لقينا العربية اتحركت وخلونا في بيرشيبة بدون ما نفهم أي حاجة على الإطلاق. وفي نفس الوقت للأسف يعني لظروف إحنا دخلنا حفاية ما عندنا قروش بتاع الترحيل، فكانت المشكلة عصيبة جدا. من الزمن داك بقيت أجدد كله 3 وللأسف مكتوب في الفيزا تحت إنه لا يسمح بالعمل. جينا لطل أبيب الساعة 5 مساءً، وبعد ذاك حتى البيت ما كان بسعنا، العدد كبير نمنا في النجيلة بتاع لفنسكي، وشلنا بطاطين لأن الجو كان برد والجو متعب جدا، لكن أخذنا البطاطين. شلنا البطاطين من الشلتر لأن كان البطاطين متوفرة الوقت ذاك، لكن ما في مساحة تشيل الناس لأن البيت صغير.
Currently, with no alternative, no capacity to hold refugees, no desire, no ability to kind of feed and house the 50,000 refugees in Israel, they really have the choice is either a humanitarian catastrophe by preventing people from working or turning a blind eye to the work, even though officially under the law it's illegal.
There is no policy. The policy says that people will be detained, a fence will be built, no future for integration for those who are here. Israel has a very specific immigration policy that says that only Jews can get citizenship and integrate, and all the rest, regardless of their situation and their claims, are just not considered.
انت كيف بتعاني اذا ممنوع انك تشتغل؟
نعم، رجعت قابلت موظف في الامم المتحده يائير وقلت له انا الوضع ده ما بينفع معي لانه ما زال الجرح ينزف، يعني نفس الظروف اللي واجهتني في دارفور وجدتها في اسرائيل. الانسان ما بيحيا بالاكل والشرب اذا افترضنا كده، مع انه انا ما قادر اتوصل للاكل والشرب.
Asylum seekers tend to find daily work in restaurants or washing dishes or cleaning houses. Some of them are being hired by subcontractors of municipalities in order to clean pavements and so on.
اتكلمنا معك
تيك يعني انك بتشتغل، بتمشي الساحة بتلقى شغل يوم ويوم ما بتلقاه، يعني اللي هو بتمشي الساحة الميدان برا بتاعت العمال، مرات بيستمر يومين، مرات يوم، مرات ساعات. المقاولين للأسف هم استغلاليين جدا، يعني ما صدقوا انه يوجدوا عبيد في سوق العمالة، انا اقدر اسميه بالتسمية دي. كلهم ما عدا قلة اللي هو زي الشركات الرسمية اللي كنت محظوظ بعد معاناة سنة كاملة. اشتغلت مع شركة اللي هو فالكون وما زلت الآن بشتغل عندهم، اللي وجدت عندهم كل الاحترام.
When South Sudan seceded from the north and gained its independence last summer, Israel was one of the first diplomatic visits of its new president, Salva Kiir. During his visit, he reached an agreement with the Israeli government, which went into effect this month. If South Sudanese refugees agree to leave willingly, they will receive $1,300 until the end of March. After, they will be deported by force. For The Real News, I'm Leah Terechansky in Tel Aviv.